All right, we're on. So, welcome to our Monday night team builder call. And thanks for joining us, Sam and Zoe. And if you're watching on the recording, I look forward to hearing your comments later. So, just send me an email, and that way I can help you understand anything that I might not have shared clearly. Or if you had some other ideas or questions, you can let me know. So this week, I was just down in Laramie with Zoe, and then today Sam and I have been working on our DIY Christmas make and take for Saturday. So she's been very busy making some crafts to sell because there's also a craft show going on upstairs. So potentially we're hoping to see some overflow from that. We'll be at the Primrose Retirement Community and Saturday, November 9th from 10 to 1. So hope you can join us all there. And then we've been talking about how to sample and how to follow up and why we want to sample correctly and do the prep work ahead of time so that when people come to a class, they're ready to get started with essential oils. And I'm basing this off of the Alicia V training, and there's several of us that are going to be attending her live training in the Salt Lake City area that first week of January. And so in getting prepared for that training, I've been listening to the mentor calls, which are free, and most of them are only like about anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes long. And some have a little bit of homework, and others you don't have any homework to do with it. So the first couple take a little bit more time because you're building your names list and going through and evaluating how you want to, who you want to talk to first and how you want to talk to them. So those take just a hair longer than some of the other ones that I've been listening to already. But I wanted to do a screen share to show you one of the calls. So I'll pull that up. Okay, so this was call 9. This is a 2-day follow-up. So we've already talked about how to give somebody a sample, and when we give them the sample, we set up a time in the next 2 days to call them or meet up with them if they're local. So this talks about what to say during that 2-day follow-up, and she gives some scripts. So can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it must be a phone call if you're not going to meet with them in person. A text or a Facebook or social media message is not good enough for that 2-day follow-up. So you've got to call them. So you really need to set that up ahead of time so that they're expecting a phone call unless you're going to be meeting with them again. So when you call them, you can say, hey, have you had an opportunity to use the whatever oil it might be? So if you gave them a deep blue sample, you could say, hey, have you had an opportunity to use the deep blue sample yet? Now notice that she didn't say, how do you like it? Or how did you do? Or did you use it yet? She says, have you had an opportunity to use the deep blue yet? And that's really important because you don't want to put somebody on guard that they didn't do what they said they were going to do. So you don't want to push them into a corner where they're tempted to tell a little fib and say, oh yeah, I used it, but it didn't work, or, whatever the case might be. So instead, it lets them off the hook. So if you say, have you had an opportunity to use the deep blue yet? And they haven't, or they dropped it in the bottom of their purse and forgot about it, at least they don't feel like they have to give you a fake answer or apologize for something they didn't do. So at this point, they can say, oh, I didn't get to it. So you can see the no answer. If it's a no, you can say, oh, that's okay. Here's what we're going to do. When you get home tonight and start getting ready for bed, take the deep blue and rub it on your lower back and your neck, and then I'll give you a call in the morning to see how it goes. So that's if they didn't use it. So the next morning you call them and you say, hi, have you had an opportunity to use the deep blue yet? Okay, so then if she says yes, then you can see the next answer below. But if she says still no, then your answer is, that's okay. Here's what we're going to do. Go get it right now, and we'll have a little oil experience right now together. So I want you to open up the Deep Blue rub packet, squeeze some in the palm of your hand, and I want you to rub it on your lower back and the back of your neck. And then just give them a few minutes to see how they feel. So do you guys see how that kind of flows?
Yeah.
Okay. I really like this because it's just natural. It seems to flow without having to do a lot of memorization. So now if you go back to where you've asked them, have you had the opportunity to use the Deep Blue yet? And they said yes, you can skip down here to the bottom. So it says, when they've used their sample, you can ask them, how was your experience? And they're going to tell you, oh, I love the Deep Blue. I felt so relaxed. I didn't even think about how much my back had been hurting the day before, or I was able to sleep all night because my back doesn't hurt, you know, whatever their experience would be. However, if they say, oh, you know, it made me really cold and I still had pain and it wasn't what I was hoping for. So here's what you need to do. Do not react or sound surprised. Simply listen to their experience and then restate what they experienced. So the Deep Blue made you cold and you also didn't get the results you thought you would get. So you still had more pain than you thought. So here's what we're going to do. If you'll continue to be patient with the process, I'll be patient with you. So the next oil I'd like to try is the Aroma Touch. It's another one that I think you'll have great results from. I'm going to get you a sample of that and we'll see if that's the best oil to address your backache. And when we found the right oil, then you'll have something safe, natural, and cost-effective to address your backache. And then deliver the new sample and restart the sampling process. So when you take the Aroma Touch to them, you're going to say, hey, I'd like to follow up with you within 2 days. And since you've already done the first follow-up, you could actually do a follow-up the next day, or if you want to wait the 2 days, that's fine. And so today's Monday, so you could say, hey, can I follow up with you on Wednesday? Would morning or afternoon be better for me to call you? And then they can say whichever, and then just set it up. Okay, please, or I'll be calling you at, 9 a.m. or 3 p.m. or whatever, and I'll talk to you then. So now, do you see why it's important to set up that follow-up time?
Yeah.
So if you don't set that follow-up time and you call them and they don't answer, and then you call them again and they don't answer, does it seem like you're bothering them at some point?
A little bit, yeah.
It could, because you might start saying that to yourself, oh, I'm just annoying them now, and whatever the case may be, when in all honesty, they might just be busy and then they forget to call you back. So you can play head games with yourself. So it's just easier to set that time up. And actually, if you're talking to them, you could even say, hey, I'll put that in my phone. I'll be calling you at 9. So I'll get a reminder to call you at 9. Now, maybe they'll put the reminder in their phone that you're going to call. I don't know. Some people would be like that. I downloaded the sample flow chart that Elise has in here, and I'll show that to you. Let me see. I don't know how it looks on your guys' screen. I'll make it a little bigger. Okay, so she's got the sampling flow chart. Effective sampling gives a prospect the experience they need to justify enrolling and using doTERRA in their life. The sampling method is all about touches and exposure, which we've already been talking about. Every touch increases trust and adds to their experience with doTERRA. When someone has been sampled well, they come to a class not to learn about oils, but to decide what they want to get. And that is such a switch, because some people don't know what that they'll even purchase anything, and may even come to more than one class, where if you've done all the sampling work ahead of time, they're going to come and say, oh, I wonder which kit would be best for me. So you can preface each sample with this. Trying natural products is similar to trying traditional remedies. If something doesn't work for you, you don't decide to stay stuck. You just try sampling, just try something else until you find what works. And when we found what works for you, we'll have found a safer, natural, cost-effective way to help you with your problems. So I like that script. And you can, put this a little bit into your own words, but just try to memorize it to start with. And then So you've got the invitation to try a sample, which we've already talked about. Then you've delivered the sample, and then you're going to do that 2-day check-in. So a couple of keys to sampling. Sample only one need. So if they tell you that they've got migraine headaches, they've got acne, and then they've got maybe they have multiple sclerosis, they have MS. So you're going to pick probably the easier one of the three to work with. And so that might be like acne or a migraine. Depending on what's causing the acne, it might not be any easier than a migraine. But we all know that multiple sclerosis is a lot more challenging to deal with, and so we're not going to give them some sample for multiple sclerosis right off the top. So whether you're going to give them some peppermint for their headache, or whatever they might need that might help with that migraine. Or if you want to do acne, you could give them some melaleuca, because you're going to go with whatever's cheapest also, so that they can see how cost effective the essential oils are. And then if that sample doesn't work, then you can move up to the next more expensive sample. And then also it's important to show them how to use it. So like if you're giving them one of those little tiny sample bottles of oil, I just did that on, I guess it was Thursday. I took some oil samples to a pet grooming place in town, and I actually took the sample out and tapped on the bottom of the bottle right into their hand and showed them how to do it. And then I had them apply it on the back of their neck and on their wrists. So they knew exactly how to use it. So they'd already had an oil experience right there in front of me. And then I just reminded them, I actually went back the next day because they decided they wanted to try a diffuser for all the animals coming into the grooming place. And so I reminded them again how they might use the oils for some of their family members from some stuff that they had shared with me from the previous day. So they were going to take it home over the weekend, and I'm following up with them tomorrow. So again, the 2-day check-in, it must be a phone call. And then if you go to the top of the flow chart, it says, yes, they tried it. And then you say, well, how was your experience? And this is where if they said not awesome, and then you ask them to tell you about it. So you listen to what happened, restate their experience, and then you say, here's what we're going to do. You're being patient with this process, so I'm going to be patient with you. We're going to keep trying things until we find what works. And when we do, we'll have found a safer, natural, and cost-effective way to help you with your blank. So it could be backache or migraine, whatever. And then you're going to give them that new sample, which we already talked about the scripting a minute ago. And then if you do the 2-day check-in and they don't use the oil, you can redirect them. So here's what we're going to do, ... And we've already talked about that script. And then you want to call them the next morning and then find out, have they had an opportunity to try the oil? If yes, they tried it, then you ask, how was the experience? So you see it just keeps on breaking down. But it's the same script over and over and over again. So you don't have to memorize anything new. And I like that she put, here's what we're going to do. So it's a team effort. They have to take ownership in what you're giving to them. So you can't do it all for them. And then if they've had this awesome experience, then you can invite them to a class. So if I like the scripting she's using here. If you think that the Deep Blue is awesome, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I can't even tell you how many amazing things there are to help you with any of your health needs. I have a class on Saturday, November 9th, or another one on Monday, November 18th, and I want you to come. Which one works best for you? So it's always good to give them two choices. So even if you don't have like this big class planned, you can invite them to a one-to-one class with just you. And then 2 days before, you can give them, a call and just say, hey, I'm excited to see you at class. And then a couple hours before the class starts, you can send out a text to them. Does that seem doable?
Yeah.
Okay. So really the work really is in giving good samples and following up. The work doesn't have to be in the class or after they enroll, because if you lay the groundwork correctly, all the work's done. So I really like how she's got this set up. So back to here. So you can see like how the mentor calls are laid out along the side. This was an old one that I pulled up. I think I'm down to like call 14 or 15 now, but she gives you an email and a text message with each time you complete a call, so it keeps track of where you're at. And then it also lists out all these scripts. So you know what I did? I did all this from my phone. And so I just copied and pasted each of these scripts, and then I gave them a title and pasted them into my notes app on my phone. So I can practice them and just reread them, you know, before I'm going to go talk to people, so that I'm used to this, because this is new for me too. I mean, it's similar to what I've done in the past, but Elise did her own study. Like, she spent $100,000 of her own business, you know, of her own money, to figure out the best way to say things, the best way to sample. And so this is like tried and true. Like, this is what works for her. And she's a triple presidential diamond in doTERRA. Like, she's the top ranked person in doTERRA. So I'm figuring if she can build a business around the world and use the same script over and over and over again, why can't we? So, and people just really want natural stuff, they, you know, that's not going to give them side effects, and it's cost effective. They're tired of spending a lot of money for nothing. Okay. So I wanted to give you a tidbit. I did Deb Erickson, and she calls it her Monday mindset class. So I do that most every Monday. I don't always get on. Sometimes I have to listen to the replay. I'm going to stop the screen share up here. Okay, we're back. So today she talked about what's called the trigger cycle. So you have a trigger, then you have, you go to what your blueprint is. So what you've always done, or most likely since you were a kid. And then you have a thought, and then you have an emotion, and then you have action, then you have your energy card, and then you have your results. And so she talked about how you have to have a big enough why, a big enough what, and a big enough why to move through these triggers. So things that you're afraid of will trigger you, and you'll freeze or you'll run. So you won't, that was really loud, sorry. You won't do what you need to do, because your fear is bigger than your what and your why. So as we move through life, and that doesn't matter if it's your doTERRA business or if it's your, you know, like for you, Zoe, you're going to college and you have, you know, a goal to graduate and have your bachelor's degree. And we all have different personal goals, whether it's a health goal or, you know, getting our kids graduated from high school, whatever our goals are. But if we have things that trigger us into fear, we won't get those things done. And so one of the things that Deb talked about today was, let's see, I gotta find it here. I wrote it down. I thought I had it. It was on the wrong page. Okay, so as you progress in your business, your what and your why need to change. So for example, like she gave an example. So your warm market is gone, which your warm market is like all your friends and family. So like for me, I pretty much went through most of my close people that I have a trust relationship with. Now I've got other people that are acquaintances and new people I meet, but those take a little more time to nurture. So what she's saying is all your nurtured relationships, after a period of time, you've already talked to them about oils. And so at that point is where you really have to become a professional. You have to say, oh, I'm doing this as a business no matter what, and I'm going out and meeting people and I'm giving them solutions. So whether you know them or not. But what happens is your brain starts to weigh things out, and it'll weigh out a lot of things. It'll weigh out what you're currently making in your business. It'll weigh out how much work it takes to go talk to people. It'll weigh out, all these different variables. And pretty soon your brain says, I'm only making this much money right now. So is it really worth doing all this extra stuff to only make this much money? Even though your goal is more than that. You have to figure out why you want something, and you have to want it enough to be able to go do it every day. Because if you don't want it enough, you're not going to do it. That fear is going to move in and you're not going to do it. So your why has to be big enough to push through that fear. So let's say if your fear is sitting at an 8 and your why is only sitting at a 7, you're never going to move past it. You're just going to stay stuck. So we have to figure out what motivates you to get out of bed and do what you need to do each day. And like we've talked about before, it's our part of the pipes, where we're preparing and we're inviting and presenting and enrolling, those type of things. And so you really have to learn how to motivate yourself moment to moment. And you must motivate yourself and give yourself that self-accountability. So, like after supper tonight, I really wanted to just go eat chocolate chips, but instead I made a cup of herbal hot tea because I wasn't going to go eat chocolate chips and feel gross and not sleep well tonight. Even though that would have been really fun, I opted to not do that. So it's my accountability to myself. How do I want to feel tonight and in the morning? And so, there's just those little things, and that's just a simple everyday example. But another takeaway that I had from that is that we have what we call blueprints. And so those blueprints often come from our childhood. And so she used an example from a lady who had posted in her I Can Institute Facebook group. And her trigger was that she doesn't ask for the business. So when she talks to people, and I don't know what business she's in because there's a lot of us in a variety of businesses, but if we apply it to doTERRA, she doesn't ask for people to join her in the business. So that's her trigger, her part of her trigger cycle. So what the blueprint is she says, you just don't ask, you wait for someone to offer. And she said that's what her mom taught her. And so her thought is, you're just being greedy when you ask. And then her emotion is stress, and she's uncomfortable and she's embarrassed. And then her action is she sits and waits. So there's really not any action at all. She just sits and waits. And so then her E card, which is her energy card, she puts out, she just like, I don't know how you want to put that. She doesn't like ask for the business. She just sits there and she's kind of not interested in her business, and other people aren't interested in her business because she's not interested in her business. Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. So then the results are nothing happens. She just sits there. She just says she wants to build a business, but then nothing happens. And so Deb's quote that she quoted is, if you keep this belief that you can't ask for the business, you might as well just quit right now. Now, obviously, that's not Deb's intention, that she wants to move. Her name was Monica. She wants to move her through this, but you have to do something to move out of this, to get rid of this false belief. And so she said some people will try to just step in and take more action. They'll just try to push through the fear and take more action. But eventually people will feel that desperation from you. That'll be your new energy card, is desperation, because I've just got to get this done because I said I was going to do it. And then you're going to get desperate. So what she said is you have to go back and change the blueprint. So the blueprint was you just don't ask, you wait for someone to offer. So how to overcome that is you just change the way you even say it out loud. So She said, ask for what you want and then allow others to ask for what they want. And so you can change that rule that you had, that childhood rule that you had in your head, by learning how to ask for what you want. And for me, I thought this was really important, because I felt like in my business, some of what I've done, I haven't been completely duplicatable, and I didn't know what I didn't know. And so now I see it. And so as you guys can tell, I've started adding you to different systems and asking you to take some free training and do some of those things that I didn't ask you to do before, because I'm learning with you. And that's what I've been saying all along since we've started these calls, is that I'm learning alongside of you, and hoping to prevent you guys from making the mistakes that I've made, and that you'll be more at ease and not have to make this be hard, because it's really not hard when you get into your groove. So, and then what was the last thing I had here? Okay. So this is really, really important, and I cannot say this enough. And so when you see me sometimes do like impulsive things when I'm reaching out to people, it's because of this. You have to take action when you're inspired. If you don't show up when you need to, you're just going to stop, and then you're going to stagnate. So you've got to take action when you feel inspired. So when you feel like you need to offer somebody a sample, you're hearing their pain, you're hearing their emotional problems or whatever it is they're struggling with. You have to take action and say, hey, and you go through that whole thing with the sampling script, and you offer them a sample, and then you make sure you set up a follow-up with them, and then you do what you say you were going to do, and you follow up. And I will set a reminder on my phone so that I follow up in 2 days, because I want to make sure that I do that. So those are important things, I guess, for me, and I hope that you guys will see those too. You guys have any questions so far?
Off the top of my head.
Okay.
No.
So, I mean, that was all I wanted to cover tonight. I wanted to give you like a little bit of mindset, which I did with the Deb Erickson stuff, and then just some tools to practice and use. And did I send you guys the link to the daily mentor calls?
You did me.
Okay, I don't know if I did Sam or not.
I don't know.
I know I will send it in a text, and I'll put it back in the email when I send out the YouTube link. So I'm going to shut off the recording. So I'm looking forward to hearing everybody's comments and if they need some extra help. So we'll talk to you next week.